If you had to have sex with one tropical fruit, which would it be and why? What's going on, guys? It's Simo. It's the end of the month, which means it's time for the monthly Q&A. If you're brand new to the channel or you don't know how this works, at the end of every month, I ask you guys to fill in questions in the previous month's comment section Q&A so that I can answer your guys' questions. It's a fun little way to get to know me a little bit more personally, and we just get to have a nice laid-back time. So if you want to have the opportunity to have your questions answered in August's Q&A, be sure to leave them down in the comments below of this video to have the opportunity to have them answered. Now, before we get into this month's Q&A, I do want to say that with August coming up, I will be attending YCS Toronto. So if you live in Canada or if you're planning on attending YCS Toronto, be sure to say hi because it'll be an awesome time to see all you guys there. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get right into it. Starting off with our patron questions. Mikey137 asks, do you think a deck like Blue Eyes could make it back into the competitive scene now that Lynx are in the TCG? I definitely think that's very possible because Blue Eyes is a deck that is not exactly reliant on the extra monster zone whatsoever. I mean, Spirit Dragon's basically your standard play, but outside of that, the extra deck is more of a toolbox for Blue Eyes than anything, and, you know, depending on how the ban list just completely obliterates certain decks, it's very possible that Blue Eyes could come back. Everything's still at full power, and I'd really like to see that for sure. The Synchro Guy asks, out of all the Yu-Gi-Oh! Card lore that we currently know about, which one would you say is your favorite? Ooh, this is a good one. I'm gonna go really old school. The whole different dimension, like DD Warrior Lady with like Freed the Matchless General and like Gaga Gigo and Marauding Captain. I love that whole like different dimension lore. It's kind of cool. We're even still seeing it today with stuff like Dimensional Barrier and stuff like that. And so it's kind of cool just piecing stuff from, you know, just tens of years ago when this lore started, and they're still putting art on those cards today. Katie Curtis asks, what's your favorite normal monster? It's gotta be Blue Eyes White Dragon. Obviously, OG artwork all the way. Chris Wilson asks, what are your thoughts on the upcoming Revendred archetype? Do you think this or any announced archetypes coming up look promising? So Revendred is a very interesting archetype because it's brand new in the TCG. I like where the archetype is going. I like that it's zombie focused, so you've got synergy with Mizuki and Shiranui and all these other very powerful zombie archetypes already. Slayer is a very good card, especially for synchro capabilities. I think we need to wait for the next set to really see what we can possibly get. I don't know what's going to happen, but it looks okay for the time being, and I definitely think there's potential, but really it's going to be on Konami to say whether or not they want this to be a success at all. Shane Nye asks, if you could have any superpower, which would you choose and why? Oh, easily. Instantaneous transmission. I just want to be able to teleport anywhere at any given time for any single purpose. Noodle Monarch asks, what is the best deck and why is it Penguin Control? Because Penguin Soldier is a fucking beast. An Alaskan Bullworm asks, what's the worst way you've lost/won a duel? There was one time I attacked for game with like an Effect Veiler or a 0 attack monster and I pumped it up with Forbidden Chalice because it was enough damage to kill my opponent. That was really dirty. And then the worst way I've lost, I think, is, I don't remember the circumstances, but whatever it was, I didn't realize that there was like a certain effect active, or there was something I completely just neglected when I was figuring out what I wanted to do for my play, and I attacked into my opponent's monster and basically killed myself because I completely forgot the fact that it was being boosted by another card's effect. Robert Jacob Rowland asks, when we get the August 2017 ban list, if all Link monsters were hit to 1, how do you think it would affect the Yu-Gi-Oh! Market, player base, and the meta? So, frankly, if all the Link monsters got hit to 1, it wouldn't really change anything because as of right now, the only one that you would play even more of is Link Spider because of the fact you need it for the Gofu combo, but again, August 2017 banlist Gofu might get hit anyway. And then you also have like Firewall Dragon for the crazy extra Link part of the mechanic itself, but having all the other Link monsters at 1 wouldn't really do anything at all because Links have had such a minimal impact on the game in general that it wouldn't really matter. The Savage Duelist asks, are you human? Only on Wednesdays. Dylan Salone asks, which archetype from Code of the Duelist will top the most? This is really dependent on the ban list itself and what gets, you know, just completely wrecked. If everything stays constant, the archetype that'll probably top the most is Trickstars, but again, it's not, like, topping is being very generous because it's only going to get maybe a couple tops at most. I don't think World Chalice really has much of a chance. Revenge Red, maybe, but again, that's stretching it. I don't know. It's really going to take to see what follows after Code of the Duelist before these decks really start to get going. Vince Out of Touch McMahon asks, do you tan in the Arctic or in deep space? I actually do what's called moon tanning rather than sun tanning. The rays of the moon emanate and actually give me my nice lustrous, you know, radioactive glow. Naki Smith asks, if you could be a Yu-Gi-Oh card for a day, trap, spell, or monster, which card would it be and why? Super Hippo Carnival. That would be the most fun fucking shit of my entire life. Annie Rude R, I completely probably butchered your name, I'm sorry, asks, what do you think of the casual competitive circle jerk and how do you get new people into the game? So the casual versus competitive dynamic of the game, I don't think is something that's ever going to change because there's such a chasm between the two. Now there's people that, you know, kind of go back and forth, but for the most part, you know, you have two distinct player bases that play the game in different ways and like and dislike different aspects of the game, and I really don't think that's going to change. I honestly want to make a video kind of discussing it and maybe ways of possibly improving it, but honestly, I think it's something that's going to exist in the game in general. As for getting new people into the game, you know, it really just depends. Sometimes, you know, people just love watching other people play and they're like, oh, I really want to learn how to play as well. And hopefully, as long as you have a good group of people that are willing to teach someone and are patient to do so, then that's honestly the best way to do it, is really just trial by fire, let them just get into it and just start learning how the cards work and things like that. I know that can be a little bit complicated with how the game can get nowadays, but, you know, if you give someone a very simple deck, something like Monarchs or even how like Evil Swarm, something extremely, extremely basic, they should be pretty okay. Stick Figure Josh asks, favorite cereal, and if you don't eat cereal, favorite breakfast food. Breakfast is actually probably my favorite meal of the day in general. I don't eat cereal anymore. I used to a lot when I was little, but Cinnamon Toast Crunch, Cookie Crisp, Honeycomb, Reese's Puffs, pretty much every like massive sugar-inducing cereal you could possibly get your hands on, I was a fan of it. But now I love pretty much every breakfast food, like eggs, bacon, sausage, French toast, waffles, pancakes, like you name it. If it's a breakfast food, I'm all over it. Adam, that's a really clever name, asks, do you play Yu-Gi-Oh? Of course I do. Here's me getting wrecked by Billy Break in round 10 of YCS Seattle, and even though I don't go to locals as much as I'd like to, I do still go every now and then. Equalize asks, in your opinion, what makes Yu-Gi-Oh more fun to play than other card games? I actually am going to do an entire video dedicated to that topic because I think that's a very interesting video and it's something I've wanted to do for a while but just haven't had the time to do. So stick around and I'll definitely answer that question in a much larger context very soon. Claude Rains asks, what do you think about GOAT format? So the cool thing about GOAT format is that I actually played in GOAT format when it was an actual format all the way back in the early 2000s. And that was kind of around the time right before I took my hiatus. But yeah, it was just so much fun. And so every time anyone wants to play GOATs, I'm totally down to do so. Asgard Gaming asks, approximately how much ass do you get per hour? Hey Jess! Jay Xander asks, what's your favorite banned card? Oh, easy, Fiber Jar. Fiber Jar is just fucking stupid and I absolutely love it. Aziz Jarman asks, in the Final Fantasy TCG card game, you draw 5 cards in your opening hand. However, before the game starts, you can declare to change your opening hand by placing the current cards in your hand at the bottom of the deck and drawing 5 new cards from the top of your deck. And each player can only do that once during a single game. Do you think if Konami actually applied that rule to the game of Yu-Gi-Oh, it would make stuff like luck friendly or a fair rule that makes players not complain, essentially? So this is something that I don't think works in Yu-Gi-Oh! Like anything like a mulligan mechanic or anything along those lines like what Aziz is describing here, I don't think that works. Because the card quality in Yu-Gi-Oh! And the way the pace of the game functions is so fast that if you have a mulligan type mechanic, it makes it so that it's just, you're always going to have an insanely good hand. The probability that depending on the deck that you play, that you're going to draw incredibly inconsistent hands, especially at a competitive level, is already very low. So if you implement a mulligan type mechanic like that, I honestly fear that it would make the game that you're always going to have like the best hand in every situation. Now, you could argue that it takes luck and variance kind of out of the equation to an extent, but I don't really think it's fair, especially with the game, or the break my board mentality of our game currently is, that if you're always going to be able to create your insanely powerful board, I don't really think that, you know, maybe luck or variance is kind of a good thing. It's a really good question though. I would have to kind of explore that more, to be honest. Blinky Blue asks, have you reached a point where you felt like quitting the game? If so, why? So earlier I mentioned how I took a brief hiatus from the game. I wouldn't call it brief, it was like several years. It was from pretty much Teledad's inception to like the end of Dragon Rulers, I would say. So it was several years. And frankly, it was just, you know, I was young at the time and I was just getting frustrated with the game. I had some other priorities in life I had to handle at the time. So I pretty much just took a break. And honestly, I don't think it's too uncommon that if you want to take a break from the game, I think that's normal, because sometimes, you know, you've been playing the game for so long that it's, you know, you can kind of just, it gets a little bit dull at sometimes. So, you know, taking the opportunity to take some time off, maybe explore some other hobbies or some other interests that you have, and coming back to it later might revitalize it, and, you know, you might be just totally back into it. It's kind of like, it's really something you can't really let go of, I personally feel. Braden Berkman asks, how many complete duel-ready physical decks do you currently own? So, I have a lot of deck cores. I don't really have multiple copies of staples because I personally don't see the purpose in having like 10 Regekis. That seems really stupid. So, I have binders that essentially have all of these deck cores pretty much sorted out. So if I want to play a certain deck, I just have to go to that binder, take all the cards out of there, and then pretty much get the staples that I need for that deck, and then it's pretty much good to go. As for how many, ooh, probably like 15 to 20, if not more. It's a lot. I'd have to go count, but it's definitely up there. GrimJow994 asks, I stuck my penis in a blender. What do I do? You're just fucked, my friend. Joel Sanchez asks, what is your favorite Fusion, Synchro, Xyz, and Pendulum monster? So, Fusion monster is probably either Dark Paladin, Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon, or El Shaddoll Construct. Synchro monster, that's probably the hardest one. I'd say maybe Blue Eyes Spirit Dragon or Crystal Wing Synchro Dragon. As for Xyz, Dante, Traveler of the Burning Abyss, Beatrice, and honestly Zodiac Dryden. I really love Dryden. That card is so phenomenal. And then Pendulum monster, ooh, I've never really like been a huge fan of like Pendulum monsters, so that one's tough. I really like Guiding Ariadne, to be honest. I just love like what that card does. It's really fucking stupid, but I just love that card as a whole, so probably Ariadne. Swagmeister asks, which deck do you think that you have played requires the most amount of skill? So I think probably that's a pretty good toss-up between Shaddolls and Zodiac. Now, I know a lot of people, you know, say that, oh, you know, Zodiac doesn't require skill. Especially in the mirror matches, Zodiac requires an immense level of skill because every single intricate move you do can possibly win or lose you a game. So I definitely think Zodiacs take way more skill than a lot of people give the deck credit for, because if your sequencing is out of order or you do any just one card out of order, you're just going to be completely screwed. Shaddolls is also another one as well, because there's the decision trees in that deck are crazy, and I really just love what that deck can do, especially if you're very knowledgeable with the deck as well. I personally didn't play Nekroz, but Nekroz is a deck that just requires an immense amount of skill to play as well. So even though I personally didn't play the deck, I understood it, and I understood the skill level it took to really play it, especially at a very high level. Kevin Mead asks, what is your fun deck? And also, if it's a different one, what is the deck that you love the most? So, honestly, every deck that I play is a fun deck. Like, if I don't find a deck fun, I honestly won't play it. And like I just said about Nekroz, like, I didn't play Nekroz because I honestly didn't like the deck, even though it was arguably the best deck for its time, and is one of the best decks that's ever been created. But at the time, I loved Burning Abyss, so I played Burning Abyss. I feel like that's the way you should play the game. Now, there's some people that might argue with you and you say you should always be playing the best deck for any given time. That's totally acceptable, and if you want to play the game that way, I don't have anything against you, but I feel that if you're not having fun playing the game, that kind of defeats the whole purpose. So, you know, I've played Burning Abyss, I've played Shaddolls, I've played Satellar Knights, I've played, you know, Mermail, I've played Fire Kings, I've played Zodiac, I've played all these different crazy decks, and that's just the recent ones. I mean, if you're going way back, Monarchs, like OG Monarchs and new Monarchs as well. All those decks, I just absolutely love them, and if I didn't love them, I wouldn't be playing them. And last but not least, John Cruz asks, if you had to have sex with one tropical fruit, which would it be and why? That's easy, a kumquat. So I really hope you guys enjoyed July's Q&A. It's a really fun video. We just get to kick back, relax, and not take Yu-Gi-Oh! So seriously, but get to know one another more on a personal level. So guys, thank you so much for watching the video. Remember, if you want to have the opportunity to have your questions answered in the August Q&A, put them down in the comments below and thumbs up the questions that you want me to answer in the August Q&A, because I do take that into account. So guys, thank you so much for watching the video. Be sure to like the video as always, subscribe to the channel for more amazing Yu-Gi-Oh! Content, and if you really like this video, consider backing me on Patreon, because just by pledging only $1 a month, you're investing in my ability to continue bringing you amazing Yu-Gi-Oh! Content. So thanks so much again, and we'll see you next time. 2, 3.